Oi, what's happening, everybody? Your Uncle Weezy here, coming at you with an advanced stats breakdown of the co-main event for UFC 263, Deiveson Figueiredo against Brandon Moreno. This is going to be the flyweight title fight here. This is going to be the co-main event right before the Adesanya Vettori fight. I will not be doing a main event breakdown on my channel because I did one yesterday on DFS by the Numbers channel where we went really deep into the stats for that fight. 35-minute video on DFS by the Numbers channel. Check out my main event breakdown over there. And I'm going to do a few more fights this week. I just won't be doing the main event this week. But before we get started with these stats, I wanted to go over a couple of things first. First, I'd like to thank each and every one of you that has been liking my videos, subscribed to my channel, been watching my videos. There's been tremendous growth in my channel over the last week and a half. I went from something like 30 subscribers, and I just went over 100 last night, which is a big milestone for me. I'd like to thank each and every one of you that subscribed. And then when I woke up this morning, it was already up to 110. And I have a sneaking suspicion why that happened, and it's probably because of the new show that I am doing with DFS by the Numbers on Pub Sports Radio. We're going deep into the stats. We call it Stat Diggers, and we will be going live every Sunday night around 6:15 Central Time, 7:15 Eastern, to break down the numbers on every fight for the upcoming Saturday card. And we had our debut on Sunday night. It was a great success. We've gotten some great feedback about that show. So I think a lot of people that did get to see that show on Pub Sports Radio maybe came here and subscribed to my channel as a result of that. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for coming here. And let's just start getting into the stats here. We will start by looking at the matchup template that I have here for you guys. I will zoom in on a little bit so that we can get a better look at these numbers. If you look in the description of this video, I will make this matchup template, I'll make it available for free to anybody who watches my videos. The link to this will be in the description, and it has all 14 fights for UFC 263. Here we've got the stats for Adesanya Vettori, Figueiredo Moreno, Edwards Diaz, Maia Muhammad, and we just go on down the hill. We got all 14 fights here. This video will be concentrating on Figueiredo Moreno. Let's go. Let's get into the numbers. We're going to start with the tail of the tape here. Let me wet my whistle here, and then we're going to really get balls deep into these numbers. So, we got Brandon Moreno is 6 years younger than Deiveson Figueiredo. 27 years old as compared to 33 for Figueiredo. We see that Brandon Moreno has a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. They're both orthodox fighters. Brandon Moreno walked into Entrum Gym supposedly when he was 12 years old and has been there ever since. He is fighting out of what Krusty the Clown once called the happiest place on earth, Tijuana, Mexico. And if we go over here to Figueiredo, we see that he's 33 years old, 5'5", 68-inch reach, also an orthodox fighter, although he will fight out of both stances, fighting out of Team Figueiredo in Brazil. So right off the bat, we can see that Moreno's the younger fighter, the taller fighter, and the longer fighter. All three of those things are going to be advantages for him in this fight. Let's move on to the experience. We see that Brandon Moreno, 25 pro fights, even though he's 6 years younger than Deiveson Figueiredo, who only has 22 pro fights, 21-1 for Figueiredo and 18-5-2 for Moreno. We see that Moreno almost has twice as much cage time in his career than Deiveson Figueiredo, which is kind of surprising, but Brandon Moreno started very young. We can see that Brandon Moreno has had a 10-year career, and he's only 27 years old, so this is obviously a guy who started fighting professionally before the age of 18 in Mexico. So we see that Brandon Moreno not only has the tail of the tape advantage, he also has the edge in pro experience, in cage time, and even in the length of career. In the UFC experience, we got Figueiredo with 11 fights and Moreno with 10. Great records on both of these guys, 9-1-1 for Figueiredo, 6-2-2 for Moreno. About 30 more minutes, 25 more minutes of cage time for Moreno, and we see that the average fight time about 4 minutes shorter per fight for Figueiredo, even though he's been in some 5-round fights. due to the fact that this dude is a serious finisher. So let's scroll down here and we can take a look at these finish stats. And let's get it right there. Perfect. Okay, so we see that Deiveson Figueiredo, overall with his wins, he's got 40% of his wins by sub, 45% of his wins by knockout, for an 85 total percent finish percentage. And we see Moreno overall with a 56% sub rate and a 17% KO rate for a 73% finish rate overall in his wins. In the UFC, however, Brandon Moreno, 6 wins, 2 of them have come by sub, the other 4 have been by decision. And then he's also had 2 draws that obviously went to decision. We see that Figueiredo, out of his 9 wins, 3 of them have come by sub and 4 of them have come by KO. So 7 out of his 9 UFC wins have been finished. That is a massive percentage for the flyweight division. You don't see flyweights finishing at that rate, that is for sure. And then if we look at the losses, we see that both of these dudes are incredibly tough. Moreno, 5 career losses. Deiveson Figueiredo, 1 career loss. In their 6 combined losses, neither one of them has ever been finished. And that is quite an impressive feat. In 47 combined fights between these two gentlemen, neither one of them has ever been finished. So we know we are dealing with exceedingly tough individuals here. Let's move on to the striking statistics. We got Deiveson Figueiredo, 3.38 significant strikes landed per minute out of 5.99 attempted for a crazy 56.41% striking accuracy. And we see Moreno lands just about the same amount of strikes at 3.41. He throws a lot more at 8.79, but a pretty poor striking accuracy of 38.78%. Where we really see the biggest gap in the skills of these two gentlemen is in the power numbers. Deiveson Figueiredo has absolutely fight-changing power for a flyweight. Over a 2% knockdown per total significant strikes landed. This is a guy who I believe has 10 UFC knockdowns. That is absolutely crazy. That is absolutely, well, you know what? I think it'll be 8. It'll probably be 8. If he's landed 387 and he's at 2%, it'll probably be 8 career knockdowns in the UFC. Still an amazing number for 11 fights for a flyweight. We see that Deiveson Figueiredo gets about 5 times more, exactly 5 times more knockdowns per 15 minutes when we look at these numbers here. 1.05 knockdowns per 15 minutes, 0.21 for Brandon Moreno. So the biggest difference between these two in the striking is not only Moreno throwing a lot more volume than Figueiredo, but it's also Figueiredo showing that crazy power for a flyweight. Now let's get into the defensive numbers. We see that both of these guys land about the same amount of strikes as they absorb, as we see Figueiredo absorbing 3.35 significant strikes per minute out of 6.76 for a 50.39% striking defense. We see that Moreno gets hit the exact same amount he hits his opponent, 3.41 and 3.41 out of 8.38 for a 59% striking defense. We see that Moreno has been knocked down in 0.2 of 1% of the total significant strikes landed against him. So he's been knocked down 0.11 times per 15 minutes. So neither one of these gentlemen is very chinny at all. These are very low knockdown against numbers. And Deiveson Figueiredo has never been knocked down. So neither one of these guys is definitely what I would call chinny. Neither one of them's a quitter. This definitely appears like it's going to be a war. So let's have a look at the striking statistics here for both of these guys on the advanced stats as well. These advanced stats, they will not be available in the description of the video, but if you want to get a look at these advanced stats, you can join DFS by the Numbers Patreon. All of the matchup templates, the advanced stats, the DraftKings tab, the FanDuel tab that I do are available on his Patreon for $10 a month, and you get so much more than that. Not just my content, it's all of Brady's content too, which is an amazing amount of stuff. When we look at Figueiredo's opponents here, we see, he's fought all these guys on the left here. This will be the second time he fights Brandon Moreno. Alex Perez, 2 fights against Benavidez, Elliott, Pantoja, Formiga, Moraga, Morales, Brooks, and Beltran. And if we go over here to the knockdown numbers, we see, yes, 8 total knockdowns. He had 1 against Beltran. He had 1 against Morales, 2 against Moraga, 1 against Pantoja, 1 against Benavidez, and then 2 in the next fight against Benavidez. And I know in one of those ones, he actually knocked him out with the a lead left hook, and he is actually an orthodox fighter, so he's got power in both hands. This is a guy who's got a ridiculous amount of power, and you can see here too, he's winning by knockout, but like he won by knockout against Benavidez by only landing 25 strikes, you know. He lands 29 against Moraga, knocks him out. He lands 31 against Morales, knocks him out. Lands 17 against Beltran and knocks him out. So he knocked out some of the lower level competition in Morales and Beltran, but even guys like Moraga, who's a stud, you know, and he knocked down Pantoja, who's, you know, a veteran. So this guy's got ridiculous power in his hands, and we also see that Moreno has got a really good, he's a good boxer too. This is not a guy who's going to be completely outclassed on the feet here. While he has that 38% striking accuracy that we see over here, we do see that he has a 59% striking defense. So even though he's not very accurate, he's not absorbing a lot of strikes. And he throws more output than his opponents do at 8.79 strikes instead of 8.38 for his opponents. So we do see that you know, this guy Moreno, even though he doesn't have the kind of power that that Figueiredo has, he is a very good boxer. He can out-volume you, he can outland you, and he could certainly take a punch. So even though Figueiredo does have the advantage in the stand-up because he has that fight-changing power for a flyweight, we saw in the first 5-round fight between these two gentlemen that you know, Moreno's not outclassed on the feet. Yes, he's outclassed power-wise, but he can land some really impressive shots as well. So let's go back to the matchup template here and let's have a look at the grappling statistics for this fight. And we can see here that Deiveson Figueiredo has been successful on 12 out of his 24 takedown attempts for a 50% takedown percentage. He gets 1.57 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he attempts 2.36 submissions per 15 minutes. He has a 19.81% control time. Moreno, in 10 fights, has attempted 42 takedowns. He is successful on 19 of them. So both of these guys, when they want their takedowns, they seem to get them. To be a takedown percentage, you know, 45, 50% is very good. 2 takedowns per 15 minutes for Brandon Moreno, about 2/3 of a submission attempt per 15 minutes, and he controls his opponents 23% of the time. We see that when we look at the defensive control time, we see that Figueiredo gets controlled about as much time as he controls his opponents, and we see that Moreno gives up about 11% control, but you know, he controls his opponents 23%. So we see that Moreno is more effective in controlling his opponents than Figueiredo is. As Figueiredo spends about the same amount of time controlling his opponents as they control him, we see that Moreno controls his opponents twice as often as they control Moreno. So, you know, when we saw this first fight, Brandon Moreno got, I believe, 5 takedowns in that fight. We could take a look at the stats right here. We see that, yeah, 4 for 8 on takedowns was Brandon Moreno here. But in those 4 takedowns, he only accrued 200 seconds of control time. So that's less than 40 seconds of control time per takedown. And yeah, he didn't have any reverses. So he was successful taking down Figueiredo. He took him down pretty easily. However, Figueiredo got back up pretty much every time. Would get his feet on his hips, create space, and stand right up. And it didn't even look like Moreno was all that committed to staying on top of Figueiredo either. When we look earlier in Figueiredo's career, for instance, here's Deiveson Figueiredo's stats. We can look right here at the Formiga fight, which is a fight that he lost. And we can look right here at the control time against. Here's 401 seconds of control time for Formiga compared to 11 for Figueiredo here. So when Figueiredo did have his one loss in the UFC, it was because he was controlled on the ground by Formiga. Formiga got, let's see how many takedowns he got. 5 out of 7 takedowns he was successful on. So this is a guy, or I'm sorry, 3 out of 5 takedowns he was successful on. So we saw early in Figgy's career when people tried to take him down. Right here in this one right here is the Jared Brooks fight. Jared Brooks took down Figueiredo 7 out of 11 times. And then we see 0 for 1, 0 for 2, but then 3 for 5 in the, this is 112. 3 for 5 in the Formiga fight. And then 2 for 10 in the Pantoja fight. So Pantoja was successful on 2 out of 10 takedowns. Then 1 out of 3 the fight before that, and then we didn't see anybody really taking him down until Moreno. So what I saw when I watched tape on Figueiredo was early in his career, we saw him getting taken down and then getting controlled. He didn't have much off of his back. Now what I see in the Benavidez fights, in the Perez fight, and in the Moreno fight, that when his opponent takes him down, he immediately gets active off of his back. The first takedown that Perez got, Figueiredo rolled for a leg lock. Perez got out of the leg lock, scrambled, and then got on top of Figueiredo, and that was when Figueiredo locked up the guillotine that won the fight. The same thing with Benavidez. Benavidez was taking him down, and Figueiredo was rolling for an armbar or for a guillotine, and he wound up just getting right back up every time Benavidez tried to take him down. And when Moreno tried to take him down, he immediately got right back up, as we can tell here when we see that only 200 seconds of control time for Brandon Moreno, even though he got 4 takedowns. So that's less than 40 seconds of control time per takedown that he got against Figueiredo. And then we also have to view that through the lens of how much of that control time out of those 200 or 199 seconds was clinch control time. So it could have even been 30 seconds per takedown, or even less than that, 25-20. So right now, when Figueiredo lost his first fight in the UFC against Formiga, it did appear that his biggest weakness was being controlled on the mat, but it does seem like he has gotten past that and now is doing a lot more when he does get taken down in terms of being offensive and attacking with submissions, or just creating space and getting right back to his feet, so where he can start throwing those bombs and trying to knock you out again. So let's go to the strength of schedule here. The strength of schedule metric shows the ratio of wins to losses of a fighter's opponents outside of their fights with that opponent. So Davis and Figueiredo's opponents have a 2 win to loss ratio. So they have 2 wins for every loss. We can see here that Davis and Figueiredo's opponents have an average of 10.64 UFC fights. And their average record is 7 wins and 3.55 losses. While for Moreno, his average opponent has a 6.1 win and 3.1 loss record for 9.2 total fights, and pretty much the same ratio at 1.97. Davis and Figueiredo's wins are a little bit better on the ratio side, 2.13 as compared to 1.59 for Moreno. Moreno's opponents are pretty experienced at 9.5 fights apiece and 10.44 for Figueiredo. So we got an average record of Figueiredo's opponents that he beats have a record of 7.1 wins and 3.33 losses. So he's definitely beating a way above 500 opponent. And Moreno's beating good opponents too at an average record of 5.83 and 3.67. If we look at their losses, and there aren't many, you look at a 9-7 record. So outside of Formiga's win against Figueiredo, he was 8-7 in the UFC. So a 1.14 loss or record ratio. I'm sorry, in the losses for Figueiredo, while Moreno's losses have come to an average record of 7 wins and 4 losses for 11 total fights and a 1.75 ratio. So if we just look at the last 5 here, we can see a draw against Brandon Moreno and a draw against Davis and Figueiredo for both of these guys. But prior to that, we got a 4-fight win streak for Figueiredo against Perez, 2 times against Benavidez, and against Elliott, all of them by finish. And we see that we get 3 wins and 2 draws in his last 5 for Moreno, with draws against Figueiredo and Askarov. I don't know how Moreno lost that fight, got a draw against Askarov. It looked to me like he won all 3 rounds of that fight, but he finished Brandon Royval due to an injury, and then he won by decision over Formiga, and he won by decision over Kai Kara France. So that is what we've got for the last 5. We could take a look here at their records. We see that, the quality of opponents that he's beating here. 7-2 Perez, 15-6 Benavidez, 6-9 Elliott, 7-3 Pantoja, 8-6 Moraga, and then his first 3 fights were against some lesser experienced competition in Morales, Brooks, and Beltran, but even them 1-2, 2-2, 3-3. So we see that Figueiredo has fought some really good competition. His only loss is to Formiga, and his only draw is to Moreno. And if we look here at Moreno, we see that he's got wins over Royval, Jussier Formiga, Kai Kara France, Dustin Ortiz, Ryan Benoit, and Luis Smolka. So he got kind of thrown into the fire right away. He was coming out with some really tough fights against Smolka, Benoit, and Ortiz. Lost to Pettis. He lost to Pantoja. He's got a draw against Askarov, which I think he clearly won that fight. And then he got that draw because of the point taken away from Deiveson Figueiredo in the third round of their first matchup. There was a really square nut shot that really hurt Moreno. And even though I don't think there were any fouls prior to that, Jason Herzog took a point from Figueiredo because it was such a serious shot. I think he wanted to level the playing field there. As a result of that point being taken away, the first Figueiredo fight came out in a draw. So when I look at this fight, I haven't seen Brandon Moreno kind of be able to do the things that I would like him to be able to do in order to get this victory, which is take Figueiredo down and then stay on top of him. I think most of this fight is going to probably take place standing because Moreno hasn't shown in the past that he's been able to keep Figueiredo down when he does take him down. I think that would be his best path to victory because I think as long as this fight stays standing, as good of a boxer as Moreno is and as hard as he is to knock down, it's going to be Figueiredo who's going to be landing the more impressive strikes, and both of these guys are extremely tough. So I am seeing Deiveson Figueiredo's power as being the biggest factor in this fight. Another thing that I want to touch on is Figueiredo, prior to the Moreno fight the first time, spent the night in the hospital prior to the fight. So he probably wasn't in the best condition he's ever been in. I'm not betting this fight at this point right now simply because I want to see Figueiredo on the scales. I want to make sure he makes weight. I want to make sure he looks good. I want to make sure that the weight cut went well and that we're not hearing anything from on either side in terms of anything that would lead us to believe that they had a bad weight cut or might not be at 100% for this fight. But I am leaning Figueiredo at this point. I'm not putting any bets down and I may not at all, but until I know whether Figueiredo, had a good weight cut, made weight, and looked good, I probably would stay away from betting this one. I could definitely see it going to decision simply because both of these guys are so tough, but both of these guys are great everywhere, so I think that there are multiple paths to victory for both of these guys. I just see Figueiredo's power being the thing that changes this fight, and eventually he finds a shot that either changes the fight or ends it. So I'm going to be picking Figueiredo. I'm picking him by decision, but I could see this being a finish if he makes weight, if he's healthy going into this one. That power is fight changing for a flyweight, and even somebody as tough as Moreno might have a problem staying upright if he gets hit with one of those Figueiredo bombs. So I am picking Figueiredo here. Thank you so much for listening to this breakdown. Please leave a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to have videos coming out later on today and tomorrow for the Paul Craig fight against Jamal Hill. I'm also going to do Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz, and I'm also going to do Alexis Davis versus Pannie Kianzad. So I'm looking forward to providing that content for you guys. Thank you to all my subscribers. Thank you for watching. More to come soon. God bless. Have a great one, you guys. Thank you.